Okay, so got done reading chapter 3 about smallpox, and I'll just start with the bad first. It sounded like this was another really bad, sort of plague like thing that happened to people pretty recently. And it's bad enough to where it killed hundreds and hundreds of millions of people, including, and this is something I read. I don't remember if I read this in the book here or if I read it or watched it online, but it killed something like 90% of the Native Americans or indigenous people that were living in the Americas when the pilgrims arrived, the colonists. Uh, so that's pretty tragic. And not only that, but once these colonists learned that the indigenous peoples didn't have any resistance to the smallpox, they just kind of encouraged the disease to spread, and they even went as far as to consider it as help from God, like this was part of his plan. And so they encouraged the spread of the disease to wipe these people out, essentially. So that was pretty sad to read about. 90% of the population dying is pretty huge. And then we moved along to the vaccinations. I think this came from one of the YouTube videos, but the Buddhist monk who figured it out, she was grinding up the scabs, and then she would blow them up somebody's nose, like with a straw, I guess. I, that's one way to do it. And then, but I mean, it worked. So, and then it started catching on, and doctors all over the world eventually started using their own methods that weren't a whole lot better. One of the doctors would, with the little boy, he'd cut his arm and put, like, I think little bits of the scab or like some kind of, I don't know if it was parts of the scab or if it was scab juice or I don't know. But as gross and as horrible as that sounds, testing on little boys and human cadavers or human living humans, uh, that's not very ethical. I'm glad we don't do that anymore. And there's no doubt in my mind that people were against vaccinations back then. I mean, especially if they were doing stuff like that. And it kind of helped me understand why people might be a little bit against vaccinations still today. I mean, that's still kind of a weird concept to put a disease in your body. I don't know. Good things that came out of it, though. We got rid of it. I mean, there's not smallpox anymore. That's pretty awesome. I think that's good. This was like the first chapter we read where I was almost relieved a little bit that uh, we don't have to worry about that anymore, or so they say. I'm a little bit skeptical of that. I don't really like it when scientists get too sure of themselves and say that nothing bad is ever going to happen again, because that's usually when something bad happens. They say, I think they said, maybe it was the book, I can't remember. There's only two places in the world, Russia and Atlanta, Georgia, where they got smallpox in a laboratory. So it's still out there essentially, and it only takes one slip up. We saw that with COVID, right? I mean, that's the theory, anyways. But we have eradicated it, and that's huge. That's a real good thing for science and everybody, really, for that matter. So, yeah, go scientists. Chapter 3, smallpox.